Okay, folks, welcome to this afternoon's Wealth Creation Show. This is all about SSAS Pensions. Now, it's something that's intrigued me quite a lot. And this is a SSAS Pension is basically a small self-administered scheme. Now, I have got Kevin Whelan coming on, and he's an expert in this. And I'll introduce him in a wee minute, but you don't really need to head back to school for this. Kevin is an absolute expert in this. Completely. There's no doubt about it. He's an economist and author and a founder of Wealth Builders. He's an articulate and insightful speaker in print and audio and television media outlets on the subject of financial independence of business owners and including ambitious employees. So hopefully we're all in the right place. He's also passionate about improving the financial literacy of our children. His mission is to help over 50,000 families completely transform their wealth and become financially independent. He has a credible track record in helping business owners create streams of recurring income both inside and outside of their company and assisting employees to jump off the corporate treadmill. How many people have been on the hamster wheel? Me included. Now, he's going to be talking about these particular subjects. So creating recurring income inside and outside your business, how to raise finance for your business, helping pension owners take back control of their funds, which is probably something I'd want to learn about, and the most tax efficient ways to draw funds from your business. Everybody wants to know that one. And how to be great at the role of a role model for your kids themselves. As I say, we're going to bring him on and let's introduce Kevin now. Kevin, how are you?
I'm just great, Jim. Thanks for the introduction, a lengthy one. And I needed, just as you normally do, have a big cup of tea.
Always good with a cup of tea.
No, but thanks for that. And
you've also written a number of books as well. One with Brad Sugars.
Yeah, I've got 3 books, all around the subject of wealth with a different niche.
Yeah.
But I think I share a passion like you do for the creation of wealth. Not just that, but also the maintenance of wealth and then the transfer of wealth. And I don't mean that most people believe that wealth gets transferred on death. I don't mean that. I mean transferring in a very elegant way, a tax efficient way, and a way that allows the next generation to carry on the good work that we've started as wealth pioneers, I guess, in many respects.
Yeah.
So rather than distribute the money, how to pass on the baton to them so they become almost the future generation's host of the future generation of the future generation. So I have an ambition to be toasted in 150 years, and I go, cheers, Kev, with a little something anyway.
I get that completely, Kevin. And the reason I get that is because I'm going through that transitional period as well. I would hate to think the fact that I pop my clogs tomorrow and basically 40% of my wealth disappears to the tax man completely under inheritance tax. When actually, what you're going to explain anyway, this could have been avoided.
Pretty much can be avoided unless you love the tax man more than you love your kids. You can pretty much avoid it. The skill is understanding how, and it's a gradual process. Most things in wealth are. It's a bit like planting seeds, isn't it, Jim?
Mm-hmm.
You need to allow time for the good actions to take place. So the earlier that people can learn these things, then the better it is. And wealth can be a bit of an isolating experience, a bit of a lonely experience for some, particularly business owners, if they're often, they're at the top of the business and somebody's always asking them questions, but there's nobody at their level. So I think it's really important that there's no self-made wealth here. This is wealth building by community and by shared lessons. And I'm all up for that. And I share passionately with lots of stuff that I give away for free, including books. So we'll identify whatever comes out of today. And if I can provide some free resources to your listeners, I'll be more than happy to do that, Jim. It'd be a pleasure to do it.
Yeah, Mark's in straight away saying, where can we buy your books, Kevin? Amazon. I think you're on Amazon, plus the fact if we go to the Wealth Builders website, you can actually get them from there as well, can't you? You can get a lot of free downloads on your Wealth Builders website as well, can't you?
Yeah, the only book that you have to pay for, I've got 3 books that mention. one called Save a Fortune, How to Completely Eliminate Your Mortgage Loans and Credit Cards Fast. The idea behind that is for those people who really have a singular focus on the elimination of consumer debt, then mortgage debt, so they can live a debt-free life, which then makes it easier to move on to a wealth-building life. However, I think that's a way, but there are other ways, and of course, with interest rates on the up, there's some value in that. But I think the second book, The 7 Pillars of Wealth, is really all about the 7 and only 7 assets that you can use to create wealth. And it'd be interesting, Jim, to see if you agree or your readers or listeners agree, because I've spent a long time doing this. I haven't come up with more than 7 assets that you can use to put recurring income into your life. So if we get a chance, we'll talk about that. That's a free book, by the way. The book I wrote called The Wealth Coach, which is aimed at business owners, is really a collaboration with the owner of Action Coach. So Action Coach is the biggest coaching franchise in the world, headed by a guy called Brad Sugars. And he asked me to write the UK version for UK business owners, because the tax treatment, entrepreneurs relief or business asset disposal relief now, SSAS we'll talk about. Not a great marketing title. I'm sure nobody tuned in because they heard the word SSAS. It's got nothing to do with the armed forces.
You're quite limited with the title you can put on TikTok, for example. You've only got this wee bit at the beginning, and it's like all I've had to put is SSAS Pensions, and everybody would be going snooze fest.
Yeah, exactly. Don't hit snooze, because the definitely the way to think about this is the best, most tax efficient legacy that you can almost build a bank for your family. Yeah. Ring fenced and protected forever, and able to be used, as you would say in Scotland, the now. You can use your pension the now. You don't have to wait till some date in the future. It's pension money available today. So, like most things when you're building wealth, there's language. There's all sorts of different language, whether you're building wealth in property, whether you're building wealth in the stock market or through business or intellectual property. There's a few of the 7. Most people, when they discover something new, they have to learn some new language along with it. And SSAS is just one of those awkward ones you have to learn. But once you learn and understand it, it's a pretty easy thing to master. Most people are smarter than they think, so they don't need to be confused or bamboozled by complex language. It's very easy to decipher and very easy to use. Anyway, we'll go where you want to take us, Jim.
Well, I've clearly got a notebook and pen as usual. So if anybody else is out there, grab something, because you're going to get a lot of download information from Kevin right now, and you can catch up on the podcast and see where it is, and then go back to it as well. That's fine. But I'm a great believer in learning as I go, especially if someone like yourself. And the one I particularly wanted to talk about was my thing that I've got a wee bit of mental block on it, is the small self-administered schemes, and what is effectively, in a small route, called the SSAS pension. What is a SSAS pension? How does it work? Why would I need it? Somebody like me, because I'm in property, I'm also run my own businesses as well. And what is the beneficial interest? And then the one that intrigued me the most about passing on wealth as well. How would we do that? We'll maybe get to touch on that as well. So primarily, this is all about SSAS, and what is this? And I've been told you can talk for at least a couple of days on that.
Well, it's not about the length of time you can speak. It's about the clarity of the communication you get across. Good. Let me try and be clear. A SSAS pension, when you boil it all down, is a tax-free trust fund for a business owner and his or her family.
Okay.
Right? So what do we like about that? Well, we like it's tax-free, so I'll cover the tax benefits. We like that it's a trust fund, because trust means it's protected, and it's got trustees, so it's got rules, and guess who makes the rules? You do. So it's yours. And because it's a trust fund, the trust fund, unlike most conventional pensions, doesn't die when you die. So in other words, it's a ring-fenced and protected, tax-free bank account that you and your business can access at any time to
So the
build and grow
SSAS,
your wealth.
so the SSAS actually stays regardless if I go.
Correct.
Wow.
So you're creating a
Imagine
trust
that.
fund for your family, and that's really quite fundamental. And it's the best legacy plan I've ever seen. And if anybody has read my story, they know that what got me into wealth building was the tragic earlier death of my father, who actually died in Scotland on the North Sea oil rigs in his 40s. And it kind of got me thinking about, crumbs, you've really got to do a good job of protecting yourself and protecting your family
Yeah.
when you realize life can throw you a very nasty exit strategy very, very quickly. Anyway, so that's why I've been focused on wealth building strategies really since my late 20s.
Mm-hmm.
So the best thing I've ever seen. Why? Well, first of all, let's deal with the tax issues. If you put money into this bank account, you get your tax back.
Yep.
So if you pay money in from your company, then you get the corporation tax back. Now, given that corporation tax has gone up to 25p in the pound for most businesses and 26.5 for smaller businesses, decent, big increase from 19p last year, then the more tax that you can get back, the better it is. So you think about it simply, if you didn't have one and you just left the money in your bank account, so you paid your tax, corporation tax, you leave your money in your business bank account. And I see thousands of business owners a year leave their money in their business bank account.
Yeah.
Tax is paid, they don't want to take it out, so they don't want to pay the dividend tax. So they kind of leave it there, gathering dust. Now, some problems with that. Number one, the tax is paid. Number two, the money doesn't do anything. Number three, it's exposed because if the business goes in any bad direction, the money's part of the business asset, so it can be attacked from creditors or from lawyers or whoever. As soon as you put it into your own bank account, the government gives you the tax back. And now it's ring-fenced and protected forever. Nobody can touch it. Nobody can touch it. Now, that's a good thing, but then what do you do with the money in the bank account? Well, you want to grow your wealth. After all, it's the wealth creation show. So you want to grow your wealth. Well, how do you create more wealth from there? Well, you've got tax relief in a pot, and I'll tell you how you put money into that pot. But just imagine there's a pot of money. Now you can invest in whatever you want to invest in. So if you love property, you can buy property. If you love gold, you can buy gold. If you like stocks and shares, you can buy stocks and shares. If you want to invest in businesses, you can invest in businesses. So whichever way you want to create and build your wealth, the tax-free trust fund allows you to carry on doing that, but with tax-free money. And any gains you make, no income tax, no corporation tax, no capital gains tax, no national insurance tax, no inheritance tax. So when you remove every single tax, you create almost like a frictionless investment. So it can grow massively quickly because it doesn't have the drag back of expensive fees, and I'll come on to fees, because that's an important thing. People get a bit confused with fees, and I understand, fees exist in life. That's true, but managing those is really important.
Yep.
So let's not forget about fees. But the taxes are bigger than everything, and if you can remove taxes on any growth, including if you've got a business like an estate agency business, and you decide you want to hold the building in which you are trading inside your SSAS pension, you can do that. And therefore, you become the tenant and the landlord. You're getting tax-free growth on the value of the property, and any rental income you receive is paid to you tax-free. So there's a huge, huge benefit that compounds and compounds and compounds. And the big thing of all is it's not a single person bank account. The most you can have in the bank account, in the trust fund, is 11 people. Now, what that does, you think about that, instead of having a conventional pension, almost everybody in the country has got a conventional pension. Obviously, the state pension is there, but that's getting pushed back further and further and further. And of course, it's going to continue to do that because all of the baby boomers are now in their late 60s or early 60s rather, and by 2030 they'll all be 65 plus, which means for the first time in our history, the older generation will be less populous than the younger. Now, what that means is the younger taxpayers who have to pay the state pensions for the older people, there's going to be less of them. So at a macro level, big picture level, the country can't afford to do it. It's going to go back, and then it's going to go back, and then it's going to go back. So the state pension becomes less and less important. And all of the big company pensions, the big final salary schemes, the only ones left really are teachers and doctors and dentists and civil servants, fire brigade, and so on. But again, that's a pay-as-you-go system. There's no money there. It's taxpayers. So to all intents and purposes, our future retirement needs, for most people anyway, is limited to one person building a pension in their own name. A SSAS allows you to have 11. So you can have yourself, your spouse, your children, and you can start to build. Or you can have yourself and business partners and start to accumulate money and collaborate together. And wealth is much better when there's collaboration at hand as opposed to a DIY vehicle for one. But why the clunky language? That's been around since the 70s, early 1970s, they came in. And they were always for directors. So you have to be a director of a limited company to have one.
Okay.
So you can't have one if you're a partner. You can't have one in an LLP. You have to be a business owner. So somebody does. Now, you can have kids in there, but they don't have to be directors as long as you are or your spouse is or somebody that's invited you. So let's say for the sake of an argument, I've got a limited company, I'm a director, you've got a limited company, you're a director. Then we are entitled to have a pension scheme that we become the legal owner and operator. So the way I best think about it, Jim, is if you understand business, you understand SSAS. Because what is a business after all? It's a legal entity created by some documents. Normally, I know slightly different rules and certainly on conveyancing and so on in Scotland, but created by some legal documents, run by a board of directors to make profit. A SSAS is a trust fund created by directors to make tax-free profit, and they can invest in whatever they want to invest in. So essentially, it's a mirror image of who you are as an entrepreneur. If you can make decisions of a business, you can make the decisions of SSAS. The complexity is nobody really knows how to. So the work that we do at Wealth Builders is to teach and to share lessons on how you can be a compliant, but well-organized and focused owner of your own trust. And you become, therefore, known as a trustee. And a trustee is just somebody who takes responsibility for something happen on behalf of themselves and others. Mm-hmm. So themselves while they're alive, and then others when they're not. And that's really what a SSAS is. The fun is when you start to work out, well, what can it do? What can you actually do? Well, there's been, I suppose, since whatever it was, 2017, when the government intervened, Section 24. I'm sure you've done lots on that.
Yep.
There's been a proliferation of property people creating limited companies so they can legitimately claim the mortgage costs against their tax bill.
Yep.
Which has meant there's been more and more people with limited companies. And more people with limited companies, then they've got permission. It's a granted permission, like a driving license from HMRC. We apply for thousands of those. We get every single one through, and the HMRC give them a stamp, says you have got the legal right, Mr. Parker, to operate your SSAS with as many people as you want, as long as it's not more than 11.
Okay.
Who else would you like to invite? And then you can choose who you invite. And that's what a SSAS is once it's set up. Then you can choose to invest in what you want to invest in. So if somebody says, hey, I want to invest in a commercial project, can I do that? Yeah. What if they want to do a commercial to residential project? Well, they could do that. What if they wanted to buy a barn and convert it, or a pub and convert it, or some farmland and convert it? You can do that. So it's almost every strategy you can think of care homes, supported living, old bed and breakfast that you convert into serviced accommodation. We're talking property specifically here, because property people always run out of money before they run out of ambition. And therefore, this is a new source of money that's available that they never realized was available, because they'd say, don't talk about my pensions, I'm busy building property. Yeah, but you've got a pension and you can put that into your SSAS and then you can use it. And there are many ways to use it. So the money can be fueled by the company, so paying money in and it gets tax relief, or you can move old pensions. So old personal pensions, old stakeholder pensions, old workplace pensions, they can come in. Now, if you start to think about somebody's coming in, their spouses are coming in, siblings can come in, you can genuinely build a very large pot. And when you've got a large pot, you've got more bargaining power. And when you've got more bargaining power, you buy better deals.
Yeah.
And that's what we find.
So Mark had actually asked a question, says, can we transfer our personal pensions into a SSAS?
You can, Mark, even though SSAS is spelled SSAS. I'm quite happy with your spelling. But yeah, you can. So personal pensions, any kind of personal pension, provided, of course, the personal pension provider you've had previously invested with doesn't cause you a problem. In other words, they stick a penalty on there or some other clause to prevent you from doing that. But we've seen all the tricks in the book as far as that's concerned. And often they're really just trying to put barriers in the way. But you can move any personal pension into SSAS as long as you've got a SSAS in the first place. So
my typical personal pension is Standard Life UK equities.
Yeah.
So it's just a standard stakeholder pension. That's what I do, and I just use it for a deduction in order to bring me down to lower rate tax at the end of a tax year. I pay a certain amount in to do that.
Right.
But what you're saying to me is effectively that fund could have actually been used, and I could use it to reinvest in my property business again. So I'm basically getting money out, putting it in, and getting the tax back on it, the corporation tax, and then I'm able to invest it back in again. So I'm effectively becoming my own bank.
It's exactly what it is. That's why we refer to it as you become your own bank, become the bank, your family bank account. And the reason why I like the whole concept of the family bank account is because when we know we got a trust fund that will outlive us, yes, we want to enjoy it while it's there. We want to invest in what we want to invest in. We don't want to be told what to invest in. And I'll come back to the stock market only type plans in a moment. But when you can invest in what you want to invest in, you get 3 ROIs that nobody gets. Number one, they're able to achieve a higher return on investment than just trusting in the ups and downs of the stock market. Because if you know what you're doing, you should be able to get a better return in the stock market. Or why? If you don't know what you're doing, then that's different. But everybody I know in property is more convinced of their ability to buy well, improve well, and get a regular income that isn't as volatile as the stock market ups and downs. So get a higher return. If you get a higher return, it means you can get a higher return on your income, ROI number 2. It means you can spend more in retirement. Because if you've got a pot worth 400 grand, say, and all you can get is the stock market returns, at say 5%, you're going to get 20 grand out. A year. But if you've got 400 grand and you've got property portfolio giving you 8, 9, 10, so you take 8 out, then that's now 32 grand. You've doubled your income. But you've taken less risk because you've been in control of that.
When you take it out, though, it will be taxable under normal taxable rules, wouldn't it?
Sure, but would you rather have 16 grand or 32 grand? You still got the tax to pay then, but you've had all the tax relief before that, and you get 25% tax free. So if you've got a bigger pot, you've got 25% more to take completely tax free. And then the final is, it means you leave a bigger legacy, because the evidence at the moment, Jim, and I'm saddened to say this, is that most people do not have enough money in retirement to sustain them for the longer life we are now living.
I agree.
And with kids born today, and I was a granddad for the second time just a few weeks ago, and contemplating this thought that my second grandchild is probably going to live to 100.
Yeah.
Now, if kids are going to live to 100, we need to look after them. We need to help them, which means we need to have a bigger pot. Well, a SSAS gives you a bigger pot because if you've made the money work harder, you've been able to take the level of income you want, but you've got a bigger legacy, and you can bring them in at 18, so you can teach them lessons and be part of their learning in their, from 18 upwards. Then you've got the opportunity not just to equip them with a pot of money, but the wisdom to replenish that money and create a legacy for the next generation. Because most generations, the biggest loss isn't just inheritance tax, it's the loss of the money when the first generation of inheritance spends it. Yeah. Because that's all they know. Mom and dad left the money and they spend it and go, woo, woo, it's got the money.
And it disappears.
And then disappears. And there's a whole language around shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations and clogs to clogs in 3 generations. It's a acknowledged fact. We're on a mission not to happen, to give kids wisdom and knowledge so that, yes, they get access to money, but they have an obligation to build that trust fund for the next generation.
Effectively, I've always looked at it, and everybody starts asking me, what you're going to do with it. And I'm like, well, I'm only the caretaker for the wealth that I've accumulated already, and it would pass on to the next generation, the generations after, that I'll not even know yet. Mark had actually asked quite a good question, was can you actually put money from different businesses into the one SSAS? So, for example, I've got 5 different companies, so I can put money in from 5 different companies into one SSAS, and that's perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. Yeah. Okay. Perfectly fine. And there's really no problem with that. You just have to. It's a bit like having a computer terminal. You just plug different other computers in as part of enhancing the network. And here's another benefit. You can lend up to 50% of the value of the bank account back to your business. Now, why would you do that? Well, if you imagine any kind of business, whether it's a property business or a trading business, and we've seen the uncertainty and volatility in recent years. So if during the pandemic, if a business owner knew that the pension they thought in a bucket says, do not disturb till I'm 65, they could have loaned some of that money to help their business. Would some of them have done that and made their business more viable, less stressful, less anxiety in their life? Definitely. Yeah. What if their business is ready to grow, so they want to expand? Oh, I've got this pension fund here. I can lend it to my company. My company can use that money to expand. Go on. So can I give you an example here? If I was looking, if my pension was maybe 3 million, my SSAS, and I wanted to borrow 1.5 million in order to provide a facility for me to buy more property, would I be able to do that and I become the bank to my business over a longer period of term, or is there a restriction on the amount of time that you've got? Okay, so the first answer to the first question is yes. Yeah. Okay. The answer to the second question, of course, there are rules, but the rules are flexible to allow you up to 5 years to repay. Yeah. Okay. And it's probably the most popular strategy we see. Now, most people use it, particularly in property. Property owners love this strategy because if you went to a conventional pension and said, hey, I want to buy, I don't know, I wanted to do service departments in Aberdeen, right? Can I use my standard life pension for that? No way. Can't do that. Take my standard life pension, put it into a SSAS. What are the different ways I can now use that to help me build service accommodations in Aberdeen or wherever I am in the country? Well, number one, you could buy a commercial property and turn it into service accommodation. No problem.
You could lend if you want to grow the money inside the SAS. But what if you're in your 40s? You go, I'd like to grow my wealth now.
Yeah.
I want to grow my wealth today. I don't want to wait till I'm 65. Then you can lend half the money, and then you can use that half of the money to build the asset for you and your company. And you can enjoy the profits today. All you're doing is you're making a bank facility from yourself to yourself. So you've got to learn how that works. But, there's so much possibility. And because that possibility exists, once you discover what are the 2 or 3 things you need to learn to serve you, to help you grow your wealth in the way you want to do it, then it's almost certain that you can make it work.
Does it have to be a limited company, or can it be in your own right as a sole trader, or is that not possible? Yeah, no. I thought that. I knew there was a catch somewhere.
Yeah, well, it's not that much of a
catch.
Because
my wee clock was ticking, and I was thinking, wait a minute, I've got borrowing from the bank, which is actually under Section 24. If I then replace that with this, I would be fully deductible, because that technically isn't mortgage interest anymore. It's just a loan.
Yeah, which it would be deductible, though. So it would still be deductible. And you can choose your own interest rate, and you do your own underwriting.
But you have to be a limited company you're lending to. Yeah.
Yes, you do. Okay. Yeah, you can't lend it to yourself. Of course, if you like collaboration and you want to lend money to a third party, you know somebody else, you know that they know what they're doing, you've done some good due diligence, you could become the bank and lend to somebody else and either joint venture with them or be a bank and lend them and get a decent interest with a decent.
Would they have to be a limited company, or does it not matter?
Do they have to be a limited company?
Yeah.
No, they don't have to be. No, there are some complexities around that which we don't need to go into.
Yeah. So it's to stop you doing it with yourself, but you could do it with another person in their own right, in their own name. Yeah. So they could be okay. There's complexities in it. Essentially, could you joint venture with them, and then you give the borrowing to them, and that's still okay?
Well, it wouldn't be a borrowing if it was a joint venture. So joint ventures in this sense would be joint ownership. Could you joint own something? Well, that would depend on, is it residential or is it commercial?
Yeah.
If it's residential, no. But if it's commercial, yes.
Yeah, because George Osborne changed that at the last minute, didn't he?
Well, but then, I don't think too many people really know that there are 2 types of residential property in pensions law anyway. Yeah. One is exempt residential property and the other is taxable residential property. So exempt residential property, so student hall of residence is exempt. You can hold that in a pension.
Okay.
You can hold an apart hotel. You could hold a care home. You could hold a children's home. You could hold a property that provides care plus accommodation together. So there are so many different strings to the property bow that can be pulled and flexed in your favor once you understand these things.
Can I transfer the shares in my limited company to my SAS?
No.
Okay.
The maximum good question. The maximum you can hold in shares in your own limited company is 5% of the value of the SAS. So if you had £1 million, 50 grand. You give an example of 3 million, you can spend 150 grand on your own company shares.
However, if I started off and the value of the shares were 0 in book value, because maybe the borrowing and the value of the assets are exactly the same, therefore the net worth is 0, could you start off with the shares in your SAS, and then if they accumulate over time, there's nothing wrong with that, or do you have to do something about that?
Well, you can't really do that. The reason for that is because a pension is an investment vehicle, not a trading vehicle.
Okay.
And if you want to trade in your business, use your SAS to get some of the benefit out.
Yeah.
But you want the freedom and flexibility to be able to make decisions as an entrepreneur. And that's fine. So you can't hold a business in the SAS, but you can hold just about anything else.
And is there a maximum amount you can put into a SAS? Is it the same as the pension law, where it's up to 65,000 a year?
Well, 60,000 a year.
It's 60, yeah.
Yeah, 60,000 a year from last year. and you can go back 3 years. So you can do this year, previous year, and 3 years ago. So you can put in 180. But the SSAS gets a dispensation that in some cases possible to put £500,000 into a SSAS and get the corporation tax in the same year. So there's some really powerful tax benefits that are not really well understood, and not well understood by accountants either, by the way. Most accountants have heard of SSAS.
I've figured that out.
but don't know about it. And most IFAs or advisors have heard of SSAS but don't know about it because they're not trained in it. It's not in their PI, so they're not going to advise on it. But it's because I discovered it around 2010, and I've been an enthusiastic teacher and advocate of SSAS since 2010, and I will be forever. While the rules remain the same. Rules do change from time to time. Mm-hmm. So currently there is no limit to how much you can have inside a SSAS, no limit at all. So 3 million would be no problem at all. Previous years, it was just over 1 million. So you couldn't have more than that, at least not without some tax implication down the line. But now that's been removed. And of course, governments come, governments go. But this is the whole point about being wealthy, isn't it? You should be able to think through and get as many benefits as you can to build your wealth that gives you a financial fortress, whoever's in power, whether Scotland's independent or not, whether it's Conservative, Labour or anybody else, whatever the tax rate is. So wealth is a serious business about learning stuff and then applying what you can. And I'm just pleased to have a broad understanding. I would consider myself, without blowing a trumpet, to be somewhat of a financial GP, and then calling on experts whenever that expertise is specifically needed.
Yeah.
That person knows how to do that. And I've built a sort of a big black book of people in my network that I call upon whenever that's needed. And it served me well, and it serves our members well.
So for some of the people that have just joined on TikTok, for example, they're asking what SSAS is. So a SSAS is basically a small self-administered scheme. It's a pension scheme that you have control over rather than actually handing it to a fund manager who looks after your pension for you. And we've been talking about that. You can go back to our YouTube channel on YouTube on Fife Properties TV, and you'll be able to watch this again, or you can listen to the podcast later on to catch up on this. So we are where we are in terms of SSAS. One of the things that I was thinking about when you talked about the generous amount of corporation tax you would actually get back on your SSAS. As it stands just now, when I take dividends out, for example, I'll either be a lower rate, which I think is at 8.75 or thereabouts, with in tax on that, or I'll be 33.25 or whatever it is if I'm a higher rate payer, but I pay no national insurance through that system. What is the, and then but I will pay corporation tax on that before I actually take it out. So effectively I've got 25% tax, plus I've got about 8% on top of it. So really I'm paying 33% net tax on my wealth. It just so happens I'll probably get more in my hand of that money because it's my company that's paying the tax. But overall, I'm paying the same amount of money.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to make the connection. If it is, I think it's more beneficial to put it in a SSAS that way. But then does that give me access to it? Probably not, because it's in the SSAS, isn't it? But then this is a wealth building exercise.
Yeah, there's a difference between spending income that you need for your life and building wealth that gives you future spending power. Mm-hmm. As I've already described, the SSAS gives you access, whether you want to grow the wealth for the future, mm-hmm. or whether you want to grow your own wealth today.
Yeah,
it's just your call on how you do that. Now, every other pension is always about the future, isn't it?
Yes.
You go to Standard Life or any other company and say, "Hey, I'd like to do something today. I'd like to buy this asset and use that so my company can earn more money today. Can I do that?" No.
Yeah.
Can't. But SSAS you can. So as long as you've got a business and the business is fit for purpose, it's a good business, then you can use the money to help that business so that you make more profit, that you can take more divvies. And all you're doing is recycling it, because the tax you get back, you can reinvest. Whereas if all you do is put it into a pension and give it to somebody else to control, you've got really no access and you've got no ability to influence the outcome.
Yeah.
Whereas the SSAS, you've got the complete ability. And remember that 11 people can collaborate together, whereas with a conventional standard life type pension, it's one person with one vehicle. It's like one's paddling your own canoe,
Yeah.
and the other has got a turbo outboard motor on the back with 11, all pushing in the same direction. A maximum 11. Yeah,
when we talk about 11, then you talked about other people coming into your SSAS, but I'm still in the old mentality of this one person, one pension. If you invite someone else to come into your SSAS, then surely they've got a share of your pension, or am I picking this up wrong?
All the pensions are individually acknowledged and calculated. And I'm not suggesting, and apologies if the insinuation was there, that 11 is the ideal number. It normally isn't.
Okay.
It's normally 2 or 3 or 4, the size of a family or a size of a family business. So you could have a couple of directors and their wives, husbands, not to be sexist about these things. So there could be 4 in that situation. It could be a mum, a dad running a business and 3 grown-up kids. That could be 5. The maximum is 11.
Yep.
As soon as you go over 11, you're in big company territory, different rules. You're now equivalent to Tesco's. So you want to stay small. That means you're flexible. You're financially fleet of foot. You can go whichever direction you want, whether it's property, whether it's business, whether it's crowdfunding, whether it's gold, whether it's crypto, whatever you want to do to build your wealth, that pension money can do it with tax relief. So you wouldn't invite 10 people to join you, because then you just have a random bunch of people with no strategy. So just as a business needs a strategy for its growth, and a family needs a strategy for its maintenance and inheritance and legacy, then a SSAS needs a strategy. And for my part, the SSAS reflects the business or the family or both. It's not meant to be a ragtag accumulation of people randomly put together for the purpose of anything.
What happens to the SSAS if there's no heirs to pass it on to, and you suddenly pass away? The state takes it.
No. You're looking at life through the glass very darkly.
No, it's Mark that's asked me this question.
Mark's looking at it very darkly. If you want to plan your wealth and the wealth of your family, then if you don't have a family, you can leave the money to charity. Yeah. And it's tax-free. If you don't want to leave it to charity, you could leave it to institutions or other people you like. And it's always tax-free. The only time the Crown or the government ever get anything is if you're not paying attention to your decision-making. So by accident, they get money, not by design. And nobody, I repeat this, nobody who has a SSAS is living their life by accident anymore. It's always crafted, designed, and implemented with skill. And that's why it's not for everyone, Jim. It takes somebody who wants to take control. I suspect we're probably somewhat similar in that. We don't want somebody else to tell us what to do. We want to be in control of what we choose to do. And that's been true for me forever. And that's why I like to do what I want to do, not what somebody else tells me what to do. The big tragedy, we've got more 70-year-olds working in the UK than history, because most people don't know how their pensions work. And then it'll get worse. And it will get worse. They get to retirement, they go, how do I turn this money into income? I don't know. All I've ever done is trusted somebody, handed the money on. I come on to fees, right? This is quite fundamental. One of the issues that makes my blood boil, and maybe one or two others, is opaque fees, hidden charges. On average, if you've got a pension, and I won't pick on a company, But an average company in the UK at the moment, on average, when you factor in the layers of charges that are sometimes overt but mostly not,
Yeah.
you're paying about 2% of your money. Doesn't sound a lot. 2%
Mhm.
doesn't sound very much. But if the stock market gives you an average of 6%, you're paying a third of your money to somebody else, and
Yeah.
they get paid before you. And if the market crashes, they still get paid. A SSAS doesn't charge percentages. There's no percentage fees in a SSAS. It's typically between 1,000 and 1,500 quid a year. It's a bank account with a bookkeeper essentially reporting to the revenue on your actions, because it's a separate bank account and it needs to be managed and maintained. You
Yep.
can't run it in case you mix your money up with your pension money. And if you take any, I gave the example 400,000. 400,000 at 2% is 8 grand. If you've got a SSAS, probably 1,000 a year, 1,500 tops. You're paying 1,500 quid as opposed to 8,000. Then, as a percentage as your fund grows, the fees are getting lower and lower and lower.
Yeah.
When you're in conventional pensions, you're getting higher and higher and higher. And when you think about that 2%, when all of a sudden you reach retirement age, you're in your 60s and you want to stop, you want to reduce your risk, so you cut your fund level risk down a couple of notches, and you're getting, say, 4% out. Now all of a sudden, you've got a 50-50 joint venture with your advisor. You're paying 50% of your money in fees. It's outrageous. So even I'm also a qualified IFA, and within the IFA that I run, we guarantee to keep all fees at 1% or below. So a 50% reduction for almost everybody we meet, because people just don't pay attention, Jim. I don't know what it is. It's pensions, Jim, but not as we know it. SSAS is a completely different way of seeing life, and I see life through the lens of, will this give a good outcome to the person who uses it? Yes, then that's what should happen. Of course, commercially, there's a profit in arranging things, but not as a percentage, not as something that doesn't get valued and assessed, and a decision to made on whether that value is good or bad or indifferent each year.
Yes.
We never ever plug a siphon in somebody's life and say, you can't pull that siphon out. We're not in the matrix here. We're really doing things that we believe are in the best interest of you and the next generation, the generation after that.
So if I disappear and pop my clogs, that money automatically passes on to the other people that are in the SSAS itself. And it's not taxable under my inheritance tax regime. And that fund stays there. So you talked about, and this was quite good because you actually talked about a classic example. You've been doing your research, or you're just lucky that you've talked about this. A husband and wife and 3 children, exactly my makeup, exactly what I've got. So if I invite my 3 children to come into the SSAS as well as my wife, do they have to contribute to it, or can they just be part of my SSAS?
They can be, but I mean, the real skill in this is to use other people's tax allowances.
Yeah. Okay.
So ideally, you do something, even whether it's a contribution, whether it's even a simulator in many respects. You know how sometimes if some of our clients who like to trade options in the stock market, for example, I'm not advocating that. I'm just saying some people like that. That's fine. You can do that in the SSAS, but almost always when you create a trading account of any kind, you want to run a simulator account first. So go and have a go for 6 months. Try it out. Pretend like you're really using money, but you're not. You're doing everything through a dummy account. You could do that. You could create a SSAS. You've got the real money. You go to child number 1 and say, hey, Fred, imagine you're in the scheme. We're going to give you £50,000 to invest. Go away, do some research, come back and make a presentation to the board, which is just a family round a dinner table, and let's discuss the pros and cons of your investment. Perfect learning experience.
Yeah,
we got SSAS members who take their kids out on site visits. This is what we're doing with our SSAS. We're buying this, we're developing that, we're turning it into apartments, and this is what it's going to mean, and this is what it's going to do, and they participate. So to me, the joy of bringing family members in isn't just about contributions. It's about the ability to teach in a more engaging way than you would by just simply having a pension and then, older geezer or girl pop their clogs and leave the money to the kids who had no idea how much was there, no idea what to do with it. And if you give somebody with no idea what to do with anything a bunch of money that's in a tax-free trust fund, they'll take it out of the trust fund.
Yeah. Okay. So if I had a normal pension, this is just out of curiosity, if I pop my clogs, is that taken into my estate, or is that just passed on without inheritance tax on it?
It's a trust fund passed out without inheritance tax, the same.
Wow. Okay.
But it's got to be paid out within 2 years.
Right. Okay.
So the money has to come out, whereas with the SSAS, the money stays in.
Yeah. So the other, yeah, that's a good answer. So 2 years has to be paid out, and SSAS stays in. So the other one as well is at what point can you actually draw down your pension, or is a SSAS just a continual drawdown if you need it?
From age 55.
So, and can you still operate your SSAS as a normal pension and still got all these benefits of the tax, the corporation tax and everything, and still continue to draw your pension?
Yeah.
Okay. You can't do that in a personal pension.
You can't. Well, you can. You've got...
You're only allowed, it's 4% or something like that, isn't it?
4,000 a year.
Yeah, it's limited, isn't it? Whereas SSAS doesn't seem to be limited.
Well, it's not limited. It's still you've got the 60,000 limit. But remember what I said earlier on. If you invite your kids, what can you do? You can make payments for your kids.
Yeah,
you can make payments for a spouse. So you can use everybody's allowance that you want to. And there's again, it's more complex if you're trying to work out what's the best way to draw income. There are always multiple ways, from SSAS to ISA to EIS and VCTs and a whole range of tax vehicles which are beyond the scope of just talking about SSAS. So you would use all the tax vehicles and be aware of them to make decisions. But to me, the reason why SSAS is the obvious one is because pretty much everybody's got a pension and everybody's got a family.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you got those two things, a pension in your life and a family in your life, the SSAS, to me, for most people, is a no-brainer if they have a limited company and they want to build their wealth.
Okay. So I think that's answered all my questions I would want to know. Why on earth is more people not doing this then? I mean, because this seems so straightforward. It's almost like this should be an automatic thing almost.
Well, there are three reasons, Jim. I mean, they'll become self-evident when you think about them, but just to crystallize that thought. The first one is the language is already clunky. Remember, you said at the beginning, if you put pension into the title of anything, you're going to get people reaching for the snooze button, or I'll catch up with that later.
Yeah.
So pensions is not an interesting subject for most people, but it can be if you know it's going to help you do what you want to do. Mm-hmm. So you have to be aware of that possibility for you to even think you can.
Yeah.
That's number one, the awareness issue. Number two is most pensions are dispensed through a process known as intermediation. In other words, somebody sells it to you. So if an advisor sells it to you, why would they sell you something that you are ultimately going to take control? Because then they lose the right to stick that siphon into your life. And the third, of course, is not everybody's a business owner. There's 5 million business owners, but not 5 million limited companies. So you have to have a limited company. And in addition to the limited company, you need to want to take control. Mm-hmm. That's not everybody. Some business owners are just too busy trading time for money in their business, and
they're too busy working in the business rather than on it.
That's right, and they don't lift their head up. And even if they're working in it, I'd say, well, geez, have a SSAS, because if something happens to your business, you've got all this money protected.
Yeah.
And if it's protected and you want to sell your business, you've got some money already. You don't need to sell your business for as much as you might needed if you didn't have anything set aside. Because too many business owners say, my business is my pension. Yeah, but it isn't, because the sad fact is less than 1% of businesses in the UK sell for more than £1 million. That's a
Wow.
lottery ticket. That's a lottery ticket. Less than 1%, because the £1 million capital gains allowance, entrepreneurs relief as was known, all of that documentation is made clear and available as a matter of public record. And I went to do this research. I was doing a speech to 2,000 business owners last year. And I read that number and I literally almost fell off my chair, Jim. I thought, hang on a minute. How many companies are claiming entrepreneurs relief in £1 million? 5,000 out of 5 million. That's 0.1%. But you got a 4% chance of winning. You got 24,000 to 1 chance of winning £1 million premium bonds.
You said 5%, didn't you? There,
5,000 people.
Which is
5 million businesses, 0.1%.
Wow, because typically you've got this one that's banded about is the 95% group and the 5% group.
Yeah.
And the 5% group is the rich and the wealthy, and the 95% is the people who will either live on their pension for the rest of their life, they'll work till they die, or they'll never get their pension. And that's effectively with the 95%.
Well, yeah,
and you make a choice whether you get to that from that 95% to the 5% group by the actions and the habits you create.
Good point.
And this is effectively what you're saying right now. It's like one of these actions and habits is possibly taking control of your own pension and actually using it as a tax efficient vehicle in order to reinvest in your future, in order to recycle the cash that you've already got that you can't get access to in a normal pension until you retire.
By golly, Jim, I think you've got it.
Thank you very much.
That's it, right? You've got it. You've worked it out. It might have taken half an hour, but you've worked it out. And that's what we need. We need that 30 minutes of someone's creativity to come and play. And normally, a business owner is not going to give you 30 minutes unless there's a reason. So if they're listening to your podcast or they're listening to my podcast or they're reading something or they get referred by a coach or somebody with whom they have trusted relationship.
Yes,
it's a difficult one, which is why there's only 30,000 SSAS in the UK at the minute, something like that.
Wow,
tiny.
And do you think the SSAS, there's 30,000 in the UK, you were saying, but do you think that's mainly set up by the people that are probably the wealthiest in the UK?
Well, that would be difficult for me to know. I would say anybody who's made that decision is probably making other good decisions. That would be certainly true because nobody does a SSAS lightly. They're thinking about it and they're usually putting away a number of other things. So I'd say statistically, probably, but I haven't done enough research to know that for a fact.
The thing that always frustrated me the most about the SSAS was every time I went on to most websites and investigated SSAS, you seem to be, it's like what you said before about there was all these opaque hidden charges. It's like you could never see them. And with the huge amount of detail, the level of detail that you're given, and then all the charges and how everything applies, it's so confusing to actually understand exactly what is this going to cost me to run my SSAS. But you've kind of made that pretty apparent that no matter what it is and what level you've got, it's probably about £1,000 to £1,500 a year.
Well, that's a good point. Again, you make another one, which is as long as you choose a SSAS administrator who charges fixed fees.
Yeah.
So that's all we do. So we work with administrators who charge fixed fees. Now, there are SSAS administrators out there. That's the people who do the administration of the work, who charge by the hour.
Yeah.
And
that was always my nervousness of going any further in terms of the pension, because it's like I've got that at the side, and it is a fallback position, I would say. If everything went to pot, at least I would have that. But my concern was always, it's a trust issue, isn't it? Really, it's like the fact I don't know enough about this person in order to put what is essentially my fallback position into their hands for them to then potentially charge me a huge amount of charges.
Yeah, well, the interesting thing about that, it's an interesting psychological issue that you've raised there. So I do see how opaque it is when people Google, which is the natural inclination. You get bombarded with legalese and factual things which are really written for legal accuracy, not ease of understanding, and certainly not with wealth building in mind.
Yeah.
The second thing I'd say is when it comes to understanding charges, in a way, it's a chicken and egg, because with a SaaS, unless you know what you're doing, you have to know exactly what things you're going to do to be able to work out what's on the menu.
Yeah.
Which makes it difficult. So that's why when we looked at it, we said, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to make it fixed for each year's, whatever you're going to do. We can see what it is you're going to do. It's 500, 1,000, 1,500 or 2,000 a year, depending on the complexity of what you're doing, not on the size of funds, but on the complexity, because some things are more complex than others. You know, if you want to buy a commercial unit in Bogota, that's a lot more difficult to achieve than buying something in Glasgow, right? Very, very difficult, very different. So some people are doing overseas properties in their SSASs. But the trust issue, and I'll make a very clear point here, Jim, that would shock a few people, I think. Under trust law, and I said all pensions are trusts, the legal owner of the trust is the trustee. So if you've got a piece of paper that says XYZ company are the trustee, they are the legal owner of your money. You're the beneficial owner. So you get the benefit, but you're not the owner. So if, in theory, if a pension company goes bust, your money could go with it.
Mm-hmm.
Why SSAS is different is the trust is you. You just have to trust yourself because it's your bank account.
Yeah.
It's your money. You're not trusting anybody to manage anything. You're trusting an administrator to execute what you say.
Mm-hmm.
So pretend I'm an administrator. I'm not. It was too boring. But if you said you had a SaaS and you said, right, Kevin, I want to buy this building. We just get all the legal paperwork and act as the administrator to get that done.
Yeah.
But you own the building. You own the bank account. You own all the money. Nobody touches that money. It belongs to you 100%. So if you have trust issues, then it's all about trusting yourself.
So
but most people don't trust themselves. They don't know enough, which is what we do is we provide all the education and all the guidance and all the support and all the community, including site visits and masterminds, so people can see, that's what can be done. Oh, I see. I didn't know you could do that. And we do those every month. And we're seeing people doing some incredible things, which is more about inspiration than it is about just, charging fees that don't make any sense when you start. So it's almost what we're trying to do is get people to start on the journey being curious, as opposed to having a call and knowing what they want to do. It takes time. It takes typically between 3 and 6 months for someone who contacts us to make a decision, and we're comfortable with that. If it takes longer than 6 months, they're not convinced, and that's fine. It's not for them. It's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
But more often than not, within 6 months, people have got their things sorted. It takes about 4 to 6 months to do. So once someone says, yeah, I'm ready, limited company's all good, the plan's good, there's enough money to make it work, then it takes about 6 months from start to finish, all done. Okay. So usually it takes about a year from someone comes to us, gives us a call, it takes about a year before it's all fully done.
So before I started out, and the one thing I do is I have a limited company which rents the leases the properties to my other limited company.
Right.
Ideally, I should have had these commercial properties in my pension.
You would, ideally, and you still can. But so the benefit is the lease, all the gain in the lease would be tax-free, so the rent would be tax-free, separate from the company. So lots of companies, when they sell, the owner of the company or the new owner of the company doesn't want to buy the premises because it mucks up all the negotiation. You want the assets separate from the trading entity, so that there's no confusion. And also you don't get any problem with entrepreneurs relief. Because you've got a property in the business, you may not get entrepreneurs relief because of the fact that you're selling an asset. So many, many reasons why anybody who's got a business premises would want to discover SSAS, and we help lots of business owners transfer their property into their SSAS, and then it takes care of that problem forever.
Makes it nice and clean.
Yeah.
Let's wrap up there, because I mean we could talk forever about this, and I'm sure because it's like I've got a huge amount of questions, and I'll probably have questions later on as well that I'll think about as well. But yeah, absolutely mind blowing. I kind of think in hindsight I maybe should have just gone down the SSAS route a lot earlier than I have done now, and I think that's probably the way for me to go. So what's your final words for anybody out there then? Because I've put your link in the post to people on TikTok. It's wealthbuilders.co.uk.
Yeah.
Wealthbuilders.co.uk is Kevin Whelan's website, which will tell you more about wealth creation and SSAS building, and same with Instagram as well. For the people on social media channels and YouTube, I've actually put that link in the comments, and it'll be on your feed right now, so you can pop into that and find out all about the SSAS program, which is on Kevin's website.
If you want, Jim, what I can do is I can create a little package of goodies, which would be a bit of a video of me talking about some aspects of SSAS a bit more, a guide we've written called Why Every Property Professional Must Consider a SSAS, and a separate one for business owners.
Yeah.
Just provide a link, and I can create that link. If you want me to do that, I can just create wealthbuilders.co.uk/wealth creation show, and then within a few days, that's all available.
Send that out, and everybody could get access to that.
And if it's sometime you want to host a Q&A for people in your listenership, I'm more than happy to get into more detail, because this hopefully is a reason to become curious. And this is my final part. I talked about ROIs earlier on. You get a bigger return on income, you get a bigger return on your investment, which means you leave a better legacies, which is return on inheritance. So you get a triple extra ROI. But the only ROI I want people to have now is to think about this point, which really gets me up in the morning every day, even though I'm an old geezer now, which is your one relationship, which is R, O is opportunity, and I is idea. So your one relationship, opportunity, or idea from a complete transformation in your thinking and a complete transformation in your wealth. And for many, SSAS is the best idea. There are others, but it's a bloody good one. And I would commend anyone just to be curious and pick that. Let me just explore this until I get to the point where I go, yep, this is for me. No, this isn't for me. And all we do is act as a guide. It's not really about trying to push people down the wrong path, because it doesn't work. We know when it won't work, when people aren't committed to building their own wealth. Yeah. We see the 5%. It's in their eyes. It's in the conversation. We know the people are going to make it work, and we know the people who aren't. So just make a connection, get curious, and hopefully we'll have some good news to share that some people are doing some interesting and exciting things. And we'll thank you on the Wealth Creation Show for bringing it to their attention.
Perfect. Thank you very much. If you hang on, I'll just end the broadcast there and we'll have a wee chat offline. Okay. Bye-bye for now, everybody.
Bye-bye.